three types of people that come into your life. We were talking about the leaf people, the people that are with you for a season. We talked about the branch people, which was, of course, the people that stay for you for a while, but then leave as well. And then we talked about the root people. Of course, those were the ones who are deeply committed to you and stay with you through every season of life. Well, today we're going to kind of follow that same theme, and we're going to talk about three types of people that come into your life and how they can affect your life both positively and negatively. And today we're going to talk about the doers, the observers, and the unaware. So, Lord, bless our talk, we pray, in Jesus' name. Well, of course, there are the doers in your life. These are the individuals who actively create change and drive progress in your life. They're the ones that are proactive. And these are the type of people that you want to surround yourself with. People who are like you and have like-mindedness. They are the people that are your accountability partners. They're the people that are going to hold you, of course, and be wise in your life. You know, it was Solomon who said this. He said, of course, in the counsel of many is wisdom. It was James who actually gave us a very practical exhortation when he said this: don't be just hearers of the word, but be doers as well. These are the people who are proactive, the people who, of course, are initiators. They often are seen as leaders. And these are the type of people that you want in your life. You know why? Because they're going to drive you. They're going to motivate you. They're going to be role models and mentors in their life. They're also going to be people who believe in you. They know your worth. They know what you are capable of. And I'm grateful for people that were like that in my life. I was thinking of two examples. One was a fellow whose name was Roy Pahal. Now, Roy Pahal was in my hometown of Claresholm, and he was such an encourager. And there were many times when I was struggling with my faith, when he would come along and say, "Come on, you are better than this." And he would motivate me. And a second individual who was like that in my life, of course, was a fellow named Al Shivkanik. Al Shivkanik was in my second church. And that time I was 28 years old. I was young and inexperienced. And here you have Al, who comes alongside me. And every single conversation, he was an encourager. Let me give you one other example. Every week for a number of years, I had a fella in my last church whose name was Ken. And Ken would meet with me every single week, and he would be encouraging me. He would be pushing me. He would say, "Listen, you are doing a great job. Continue doing it." And we need people like that. These are, of course, the people who make it happen, the decision makers, the encouragers, the people who walk with gratitude. They see what you are capable of doing and they encourage you to do it. Remember, being a doer, not only in your own life, but in the lives of others, can take people, of course, to the absolute top. You know, Elon Musk told a story about the time that when he was young and he was thinking about certain things, he asked his dad what he should do. And his dad said, "Elon, you have the capability and the ability to be able to do great things. Go ahead and do it." And of course, because of that belief, not only of his father, but of himself, he created what he has created today. And of course, when you have a doer in your life, their actions are going to speak volumes on how they think about you. They are going to be tangible people in your life. In fact, we call them root people, people who will be with you through thick and thin. Their ability, of course, is to be able to influence not only themselves, but their environment and insights to others who will follow suit. They lead by example. And that's what you and I need to be. We need to be role models and mentors for those around them. I want to give a little encouragement to parents right now. You and I can set the stage for not just the next generation, but the generation after by the way that we view. I love how one person put it this way. You know why grandparents love their children so much? It's not because of the fact that their grandchildren are better than their children. They are actually a reflection of their own children and how much their children meant so much to them. And then the grandparents gets to do it all over again. That's the beauty of mentorship, role modelship, and also as well life in general. That's why we're called to be doers, not just observers as well. And they often are the innovators and problem solvers in many situations. You know, being a doer is, of course, so important because you see the possibilities, not the impossibilities. And I love the fact that impossible is, of course, the first two letters is I am, and it is possible. And that's what a doer is all about. And we need those people in our lives. And also as well, we need to be those type of people. Then, of course, you have the observers. Now, the observers are in our lives. They are, of course, what I described as the leap people. These are the people who watch events unfold, but actually don't get active or allow it to influence them. And that is, of course, many people in our lives. They are the people that come into our lives for a little time and then they come out. They often provide some feedback, but also as well, they do not typically initiate, of course, the action themselves. They are observers. For example, what's going on in Minneapolis right now, there are many people who saying, you know, that is a bad situation. But you know what? I am not affected by this, so it's not really going to bother me. There's a wonderful example from the Bible who's a fella named Hezekiah. Now, Hezekiah had been, of course, rescued by the Lord and healed by the Lord. And then what happened was this. Some representatives from Babylon come down, and what does he do? He shows them everything in his kingdom. Well, the prophet Isaiah said, who are those guys? And he said, oh, they're officials from Babylon. What did you do? He says, I showed them everything. He says, I showed them the treasures in the temple, and I showed them the treasures that were in my treasury box. You know, I wanted to roll out the red carpet. And Isaiah says, don't you realize that Babylon is going to become a power? It's a middle power right now, but it's going to become a great power. And they're going to remember what you did. And one day they're going to come and they're going to take all that treasure. And he said, well, when that's going to happen? He says, well, in the future. So what does Isaiah or Hezekiah say? Well, if it doesn't affect me, I guess I'm going to be all right. Well, in that incident, of course, Hezekiah was an influence. These people can be valuable in their insights and their perspectives, but they often have a broader view of situations. They are observing. And they're saying, you know what? Because this thing doesn't affect me, I am going to keep my voice silent. And that's really kind of sad. But those are the type of people that come into our lives. However, they often miss opportunities and fail to contribute or lead due their more passive type of influence. Don't be just an observer. Don't just say, hey, I got faith, or say, that's really, really sad about what's going on in this world. But you know what? Because it doesn't affect me, I'm not going to do anything about it. They're the people that watch the news and go, Oh, isn't that tragic? That is terrible. But because I'm sitting in the comfort of my own home and I'm watching it on my big screen TV, well, it doesn't really affect me. So I'm not really going to do anything about it. That is, of course, an observer. An observer is a witness, but they don't report what they see. That's why it's important not just to be an observer, but to be a doer, to be an active individual. There are many people who are observing what's going on around, but they're not doing anything about it. And then, of course, there's the unaware. This is a group of individuals that are largely oblivious about what's going on around them. There's a group in the States called MAGA, and they're the guys who basically say, you know what, we're going to make America great again. But they don't have a grasp on reality and they don't see what's going on. They are the unaware. They can be uneducated. They can also be people who basically say, hey, you know what? Even if you show me the truth, I'm not going to believe it. These are the people that are disengaged and uninformed. There was an incident, of course, in the Bible about the day of Pentecost when the Holy Spirit came down upon the people that were there. And there were people that understood what was going on, and there were people that were amazed, but, they were disengaged. They said, isn't that interesting? Well, okay, I'm not going to believe that even when I see it. And they lack the awareness to understand the dynamics of their environment. There are people who are going through difficult situations right now and are totally oblivious. A perfect example of that is someone who is suffering from Alzheimer's or someone who is, of course, hallucinogenic. I heard of a story of a guy recently who decided that he was going to leave his care home and go for a walk. Now, they had forgotten to lock the front doors. He was about 83 or 84 years old, and he put his coat on, and he had his pajamas on and some slippers. And he walked out the front door and was walking down the street, heading someplace, but he didn't know where he was. He didn't know his surroundings or even how cold it was. It was only when a nurse who was driving down the road towards work that saw him walking down the road with his coat on, but with his pajamas and his, of course, slippers on. She stopped immediately. She recognized who he was. She walked over to him and said, "Hey, so-and-so." He kind of looked at her and he said, "Yeah." He was aware of his name. "Where are you going?" "Oh, I'm going to head over to such and such a place right now." He was heading actually the wrong direction. She says, "Well, do you know that you're heading the wrong direction?" He said, "No, I'm not. I'm going this way." Well, she was able to convince him to go back into her car, and she took him back to the care home. That is a perfect example of the unaware. They're going someplace, they don't know why, and they are doing it with all the gusto that they have, but they are unaware. There are people like that are happening right now. Now, they may not contribute, for example, to discussions of actions. They represent actually a significant portion of the population. There are many people that are kind of looking around, but not really seeing what is going on in the world at large. You have people that are doers. You have people that are observers, but then there are a large group of people in society that are totally unaware. And their lack of awareness can sometimes lead and miss opportunities for growth and development. So the question for me today is, what are you? Are you a doer? Are you an observer? Or are you just walking around totally unaware? I remember when I was a kid, we had a friend, and this friend loved to talk to the birds and loved to talk to the animals and talk to the ants and basically walked around in life totally unaware of what was going on. Now, the reason was, of course, they were young and they were focused on this thing and that thing. But you know what? You don't have to be that way. You can be a doer. Don't just be an observer, and don't walk around unaware or think that, because something doesn't affect you, that it's okay. Because sometimes things that do happen to you are going to move you from both the unaware and also as well the observer. A perfect example of that happened to me a couple of months ago. And my wife and I got up on a Sunday morning, and all of a sudden, my wife hits the old toilet and it starts flowing up right away. It's backing up. And right then and that moment, I turned from unaware because I was unaware that there was some tree roots that were in my gray water pipe. I was unaware until all of a sudden the water started coming up. Now, I ran in there and looked and saw the water that was coming up. In that moment, I was not just unaware, but I was an observer. Now, as the water was coming up, I had to turn into a doer right away. So the first thing I did was, of course, get the towels out, and we cleaned up the gray water that was coming out of the toilet. Then I ran into our back bathroom and looked in our back bathroom and saw gray water in the toilet. Well, instantly I knew that I had to do something about it. What I had to do was, first of all, call the plumber. In that moment, I had to become a doer. I had to become active. So I immediately phoned up the plumber and he said, well, you're going to have to get all the gray water out of your pipe. So what that meant was I had to go down, and we have a second pipe, a secondary pipe that you use, and it's called a clean out pipe. And for the next hour, I had to carry out bucket by bucket the gray water until the clean out chute or part of it was cleaned out. Then I had to put a pipe into the clean out pipe, and the plumber came and he took his Roto-Rooter, his electric snake, and he took it down into the gray water pipe, and he dug it out, and he got all the tree roots out of my gray water pipe. I had turned from a unaware to an observer to a doer. And that is a perfect example of course, having to react to a situation. You and I, we will find life doing that to us all the time. You may get up this morning and you go out and you go to start your car and it doesn't start. The battery may be dead, or you may have a flat tire. In that moment, you were unaware. You totally believed that your automobile was going to start. You totally believed that your tires were going to be, of course, pumped up, not flat. And you know what? You come out and you observe the situation. Now, in that moment, you've got to make a decision. You can call the auto club and have them come and take care of the situation, or you do it yourself. Either way, you turn from unaware to observer to doer. That is, of course, the responsibility, because especially if you have to go to work, guess what? You're going to have to do something about it. Or you're going to have to call the boss and say, hey, listen, I can't come into work today, or I'm going to be late because of these reasons. You go from unaware to observer to doer. These are perfect examples of how life makes you become a doer. So guess what? Do what you need to do, and of course, be a doer, because that really changes the world. It's a little thought for you today. My name is Robert Dean Steele. We've talked about these things. If you like what you've been hearing, of course, always press the like button and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Also, as well, today, don't forget to check out my YouTube shorts. I did a series of them just before I came on today, and some of them are pretty good. I have two of them. That one is an Eleanor Roosevelt quote, and the other one is a Joyce Meyer quote. And then I also remind you how that life is so important in so many different ways. Check those out as well. My name is Robert Dean Steele. Thank you for spending time with me, and have yourself a great and godly day. And remember, don't just be unaware. Don't be just, observer. Be a doer today. One of the biggest things that you can do today is, of course, encourage someone and help someone today. Remember, love is patient and love is kind. If anything else today, be kind. Have yourself a great and godly day.